Okay, well, my name's Lane. I'm a 2024-2025 fellow, Chattanooga Fellows. Here's my little intro. So I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina. I went to NC State, go Pack. I majored in meteorology, which people always give some sort of like, whoa, that's so cool whenever I say that, and I feel really awkward when they don't, because I'm like always expecting. I'm just used to it at this point, and then I look like I think too much of myself, so sorry about that. This is me at my graduation. Also, fun fact, I did in fact graduate with honors, but I didn't know. So I didn't get a stole, which I think is a pretty funny thing that I thought I didn't, and I actually did. I went to Church of the Apostles in Raleigh, and that's how I got involved with Fellows. This is actually one of my friends, Gebby. This is us when I was a senior in high school, and we just happened to match. But she did Fellows my freshman year of high school, and that was just super formative for me, like as a person, and also in my Fellows journey. But I think this is just such a cute picture of us, because we met when I was 14, and then all throughout high school, she was a mentor to me, and she's probably the reason that I'm doing Fellows now, so that's really cool. I said I would like never do Fellows as a kid. I thought that was so uncool, like you're out of college and now you're back with kids doing school stuff, and now here I am, because senior year I realized I needed a plan and a job. So I was a meteorology major, but I am not doing meteorology work this past 9 months. I've actually been working at 1-to-1, doing data analytics. 1-to-1 is a healthcare company. This was our Halloween party. So I work with some great people. I'm not going to be staying there next year. It's not really the industry I'm trying to pursue, but I did get some great experience with them and met some really great people. All right, so Chattanooga Fellows, as you have learned, conveniently has 4 pillars, which is a wonderful structure for a presentation. So we are going to go to our first pillar of faith. It's technically called Explore Your Faith. So this year I expected to like deepen my relationship with Christ, learn Bible facts. We actually got to like reread our application for Fellows, and that's basically what I said. And like, what do you hope to get out this year? And I was like, more God, I guess. It was super vague. And I certainly did like deepen my relationship with God, learn Bible facts. It was my first time like studying the Bible educationally. We had wonderful teachers and classes. We got so many free books. I'm stocked for Christian reading for forever now. I'm like a fiction reading girl, and so nonfiction kind of scares me, and I have more than enough, so don't need any more. But so that was just a great gift that keeps on giving. We can look back to those. But what I did learn that I didn't really think I would learn is just about like the character of God and the question of like, who does God say he is, and that being like your center post for how you look at everything in life. Like, who does God say he is, and then look at your problem from that perspective, because if God is good, then that's how I need to be looking at him, I guess. So that's just deepened my trust with the Lord, like immensely. Just learning that he cares not just about like me following the rules or how well I accomplish a task, but also cares like how I feel while doing that. Like he cares if I'm unhappy doing something that I'm good at. Like, I don't know, that's a whole other tangent. But I just learned a lot about like wrestling with God and learning that he could take it, basically. Like I'm not gonna drive him away. I'm not gonna say something he hasn't heard before. I think that word wrestle has really stuck with me this whole year, and it made me uncomfortable the first time we talked about it. And what's it called? Our friend Dan Allender, To Be Told. It's a book. And talked about wrestling, and he just talked about it so, he was like wrestle naked with God, and we were like, oh, that's some crazy language. But it made an impression, and it stuck. And once I got past the weird part, it really did make sense, which was a lot of his book, once you get past the weird part. But yeah, just wrestling with God was a big takeaway. Also, just the importance of rhythms and consistency. Our Long Obedience in the Same Direction by Eugene Peterson. That's another like staple like phrase of this year, I think. Just like consistency above all else, almost. I learned a lot about like spiritual disciplines. I didn't start my timer. My favorite, I think, that we talked about was Sabbath as a command, because that just gets me every single time. I think I get like too convicted about it, and I'm like, nope, I'm not gonna think about that. And then it comes up again, and I get really convicted about it again, because it's just like a commandment that is so easy for me to overlook. And so I'm really excited after Fellows to start to be able to like implement my own like Sabbath rhythms, I guess, since I'll have so much more flexibility outside of Fellows. I think that was a big challenge for a lot of us, is with all the information we were learning, like how do we live it out? We're just kind of storing it and not doing anything with it. So I'm really excited to be able to put some of those spiritual disciplines we learned about into practice with my own life and schedule this next time period. This was one of our classes. This is DC conference. We also just had a great network of other believers our age, which is just so cool to be like out of college, post-grad, and be in a room of like 300 other like-minded people. That's pretty rare. And then the Mission Chattanooga is also a very, very important part of this year. I live with one of the pastors, Micah, who's been wonderful to me, her and her family. And I love Anglicanism. I grew up Anglican. Didn't realize I was an Anglican girl until I came here, and I was like, you know what? I like this stuff. So I'm fully embracing it now, and I can say I was Anglican. I was in fact baptized in the Presbyterian Church, but nobody needs to know. I found that out this year, and I was like, oh no. But okay, thank you. But the mission, and this year, but the mission especially, is where I really learned to love children. We worked in the kids, whatever. The fellows at the mission worked in kids every week, and I would always kind of try and stay away from that because kids are scary. But this really showed me that kids are not scary. They're just, I guess I got to see children like through the eyes of God this year, and like what He means when He says like faith like a child. And so that was just really, that was cool. I really love the mission. I'll be staying there for the foreseeable future, become a member, a steward, if you will. So that's the faith. Vocation is our next pillar. So pre-fellows, I was a meteorology major, not sure what I'm doing next, not sure I want in a job, not sure what vocation looks like. We learned a lot about work in general in the fall semester, and I learned a lot in particular about how like work is pre-fall. I never really thought about that just at all, that work existed before the fall. That was kind of like, whoa, mind-blowing, that we were created to work. Work is good, that work will always be tainted by the fall, but that it can still be redeeming. And that's been really important for me to keep in mind, to not get bogged down by like the monotonous, especially with my data analysis job, in which there are office dogs, so that is really cute. But just the like meaninglessness that I feel sometimes of like, these are just numbers on a screen. And that, my work can still have an impact, and I can still work for the Lord. We learned a lot about the inherent dignity in work, and that no job is holier than another, which I was already cool with. So I'm glad that wasn't a struggle for me, because I feel like that's like a hard one to get over. That sounded mean. Sorry, I didn't mean for it to sound mean. But I'm like chill with like, hey, all work is good. So I like that aspect of this program. That was good to hear, especially because I'm not like going to become a pastor or anything. Like, I just know that. And so to have that affirmed was very good. We had a lot of like professional development classes, which is very practical for the job search because I'm officially unemployed, which is very exciting. But I'm also chill with that. I'm chill with big things. It's the little things that really get me. So being unemployed, fine. Giving a presentation, not fine. So don't really know why that works the way it does. But here we go. So my work at One-to-One I did still learn a lot. I learned about how important workplace culture is, what a big difference sitting by good coworkers makes. I learned it's a lot, like being in a big open office setting is a lot like being back in school. Like it really matters who you sit next to, and that will determine a lot of your experience there. And above all, I just learned like to work for the Lord and not for man. Like if I'm doing in like good faith, my hardest effort, like that is enough. And that's been very encouraging. And then this was kind of funny. This is actually the Hurricane Helene, which is kind of awkward. This was before it actually hit, so that's kind of crazy also. But this was at my office. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, you're a meteorology major. And so they made me like put weather stuff up on the big screens, and I give little weather talks. And it was really fun. So that's just kind of funny. And then this is our vocational retreat, where we talked a lot about some aptitude testing that we did and got a whole lot of information about like what makes us tick, which is kind of fun. Civic responsibility, as Gianna said, is the one I always forget when I'm trying to remember the pillars. It's always this one I forget. And I think it's just because it's so like rooted in everything that the program does. Like it just feels like it's part of the program, not its own thing almost. There are so many nonprofits in this city doing so many good things, and we got to visit so many awesome people and leaders and just learn about the goodness and the brokenness of this world and this city. And having to face that brokenness to begin any sort of healing process. Healing's not like done in a void. We have to engage those people who have been hurt. And that's not easy. And that was one of the most challenging parts of this year, I think, is just having to face things that you can't put a positive spin on, that you just have to sit with and like, this is broken, this is sin, this is bad. And God is still good. And how do we live through that? And just a reminder that we like ultimately we seek the kingdom, we don't build it. That's been encouraging me, that it's God working through me. It's not me having to save the world, really. A lot of our nonprofit visits looked like this, with a bunch of people crammed into a very small closet while someone talked to us about their processes of their nonprofit. We got to visit the Capitol, which was really cool. Sorry, Henry. I knew nothing about like state government before this, and so this was more of just a good like education, well-rounded person. There's a state senate and a federal senate, like things you should know by now that I didn't. And then we also get to volunteer with our nonprofit of choice. I spent a lot of time at Crabtree Farms in the spring semester. We didn't actually visit them as a vocational or as a nonprofit visit. But they're still an amazing nonprofit doing great work in the city. So, yeah, civic responsibility definitely is woven into like every aspect of Fellows. And I think that's why it seems so like vague when I try and talk about it. Last pillar, I saved the best for last, is community, because this was definitely the most formative pillar of my year. I knew coming in that I lacked Christian community, but I didn't realize how essential Christian community is to just life and thriving and flourishing. The pillar is, as Henry said, it's commit to community, and I also think that's super intentionally chosen. I really found out what that means this year, to have to commit to community. There's a quote in our Fellows quote book when me and Gianna were looking at little turtles in the aquarium, and the turtles were fighting. And Gianna said, "Oh, that's so sad. They're in a cage and they're fighting, but they can't leave." And I said, "Oh, it's like Fellows." And this was after, it was just this one. It was in our storming season. We love each other a lot. But there is something about like, you can't leave. Like, you have to work it out. Like, you can't leave. And that could be bad in some situations, but I think it was like essential. Like, we were all ready for this. We came into this like ready, like we are going to commit, even though we don't know each other, which is crazy. And we did it, which is also crazy. I experienced some real growth this year handling conflict, as everyone figured out. I don't run away. I can stand there and say conflict can be healthy. Conflict can lead to good things. Community dinners have been my favorite part of this year, I think. I featured 2 of them up here. It has been just like an honor and a blessing to be hosted every single week by different people around the city and told their story, invited into their homes. It's been a huge inspiration to host in my own space. We have one, which is exciting. And just be able to kind of give back what we were given, not in the same way, but at least try and, carry it on. A huge shout out, again, to my host family for their incredible generosity. They've been such an important community to me outside of the Fellows circle, even though they're still kind of in the Fellows circle, but away from the crazy to their crazy, which I love. I've been honored to be invited into their lives and share their space. This hasn't been a walk in the park community, has not been a walk in the park for me, especially I'm a little quiet and shy sometimes, and this is a large group of not quiet and shy people, which I love so much because then they make me not quiet and shy, and I'd like that version of myself, so thanks guys. So I love my girls so much. This is such a fun group picture of us because it's so unstable. I feel like that's a really good representation of this year, actually. And then here is me with my host family playing in the snow. Micah took the picture, so she's not in it. But yeah, I've just come alongside so many amazing people this year. It's been great. So I'm staying in Chattanooga. Yay. Not sure what the job is, but we're chill. We're fine. I'm looking at environmental science positions. I don't think meteorology, Lane Swecker meteorologist is not in the imminent future, but Lane Swecker environmental scientist could be. But I am confident that this is where the Lord wants me for right now, and I'm really excited to see what is in store for me next, and so excited to have all my own time outside of Fellows to try and put all these things that we've learned into practice. And I have a feeling, I'm going to talk to you later, Ralston, but I have a feeling that the year after Fellows needs its own presentation of putting this is the pre, and then year after Fellows is what actually happened. So we'll see. I'll be back next year. Just kidding. I'll tell you how it's been. But yeah, definitely has changed my life. It's been awesome.